I think I just wanted to be loved unconditionally.
If you're able to get a mentor.
So investing in myself by way of being a lifelong learner.
Being high value is a lot of unnecessary things every day.
Staying in education and keeping my mind right is how I've overstepped poverty.
Not everyone's on your side. Not everyone's fighting your battles. You have to fight those battles.
Overstepping poverty.
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 Hello? I'm overstepping poverty right now.
Welcome back to Overstepping Poverty, the podcast that provides you with tips, tricks, and hacks in overstepping poverty. My name is Daquan Brooks, and I'm here with my co-host Zacchaeus Shaw. How you doing, Zacchaeus?
I'm doing good, man. You know, keeping the train rolling with some more changes in my life. I decided to leave Cross Country Mortgage, and I'm going to a new brokerage here soon. I'll be active here about a week. By the time this comes out, I'll be active. Probably already closed a bunch of loans already. But yeah, so very excited about that, man.
Very nice. Yeah. That's very exciting. You know, on to new endeavors. Mm-hmm. You know, I was actually reading the other day, and I forget what article it was, but they're stating that people who, like, within 2 years, 2 to 3 years is what they're saying, they leave their job. They usually, as an outcome, get like, I think it's like 3 times their income that they make, like in a lifetime, just because they're not staying. Yeah, absolutely. Like, and I'm reading this, I'm like, geez. But again, it's like, if it's for you and it's better for your situation, why not? Like, why would you continue to say it's something that's not fulfilling your needs or anything like that, you know?
For sure. And that's not to say that it didn't fill my needs at one point. I'd look at it kind of like a stepping stone, you know, to get to where I'm going. And that's how it should be.
Absolutely.
We can't stay stuck at where we're at. So, you know, what do we say about, you know, if a plant ain't growing, it's dying.
Right.
You know? So how about you? How are you doing?
Man, you know what? On the change thing, as all of our viewers can see, cut off the locks, no more locks. Yeah. Yep. Started over, doing an entirely new hairdo. New year, not a new me, just a new hairdo. That's all.
It's about to be a new you. About 2 months.
Right.
It'll be a real new you.
Right. Yeah. No joke. That's coming right around the corner.
Yep.
You know, sometimes I forget about it, and I'm just like living in the moment before I'm going to have this human that I have to take care of every single day, you know. Mm-hmm. It's kind of nerve-wracking, but then again, it's a lot of excitement as well. So
for sure.
Let's go.
That's that feeling where you got to live there, that feeling of you're nervous a little bit in your stomach. So, well, I want to get into our podcast today. We have an amazing guest. You know, I've been waiting on this one. I'm super excited about this. Somebody that I've been able to learn from kind of from afar, but within his program. And now I'm in another one of his programs called Author of My Life. You know, he helped create Think3D Solutions, also helped form, Bridge the Gap here in Sioux Falls, as well as Leaders of Tomorrow, which we always talk about on here. So I would like to introduce Tamien Dysart to the podcast.
Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm glad to have you. Like I said, it's been, you know, for me, it felt like it was always going to happen because we went and got Manny on, you know, and I'm connected with Manny and Vonnie with football. And then we got Vonnie on, and we actually got to shoot in your place of business.
Yep.
And now having you on, who's doing so much in the city, really all over the country, helping people create better culture. But I want to get to a little bit of a serious conversation here about football real quick. Going into the Super Bowl, you know, I want us to cast our prediction on who we think we're going to win, or who we think is going to win. So we got the Kansas City Chiefs, correct, and the San Francisco 49ers. I want to know who you guys have winning and who's going to be the MVP.
Of the game or of the NFL season?
Of the game.
Of the game. You know, I'll start. I think Kansas City is going to win. I think it's going to be a 17-10. Same as
17-10.
Same as the last game versus the Ravens. 17-10, right? That was the outcome. I think it's going to be exactly the same. I think it's going to be a hard fought battle between two defenses. Obviously, both their offenses are great, but when it comes to coaching and whatnot, like that's the end all be all. When you get into the playoffs, the Kansas City Chiefs are always a different team. Yeah. San Francisco, they have a great team as well. So I think it's going to be low scoring, 17-10, Kansas City on top.
Damn. What about you?
I'm going to go Chiefs as well.
Do you have a team that you like?
So I'm a Notre Dame fan. When I grew up a Randall Cunningham fan. Okay. So, but I think probably because they didn't win enough, the Eagles didn't stick. Mm-hmm. So I'm Lakers basketball, Notre Dame football, my two diehards. Okay. And that. So I'm more of a players person. I love greatness. I love the NFL and those type of things. So again, I like Patrick Mahomes. I love Travis Kelce. They chemistry, those type of things. But again, this is going to be football fans are winning right now.
For sure.
It feels good. It's winning football right now. So
yeah, I know it's one of those things. It was always with Tom Brady, when he was playing and the game was on the line, he's going to go down and he's going to win the game. Right. Like, you just know it. Right. And it's kind of like a helpless feeling as you're watching it because you just see it unfold. I kind of feel the same way with Mahomes. I feel like he's that player now where you just don't bet against him. So I actually also have the Chiefs. I don't really believe in Brock Purdy. I mean, I should because he's there, but
yeah,
they got lucky.
I think that defense is going to do some nasty stuff to the 49ers. I really do. I think it's going to be a higher scoring game. I got 34-28.
34-28.
Yep.
Okay.
31-17.
31-17.
Okay.
All
right.
We'll
come back to this, but
right.
All right. Well, let's get into this. I want to start, with you kind of taking it back to the beginning for you, kind of where you come from, how you grew up, kind of what were the dynamics as you grew up, and how did we get to, Think3D, starting a nonprofit? How do we get to this point?
Yeah, well, that's a long journey.
A long story.
44 years old, so that's a lot of years in there. Born and raised Sioux Falls. First 6 years of my life, my dad wasn't in the picture. He was in prison for a few years, and that. So my mom, I'll call it, she was single mom for a little bit in there. I had a very abusive stepfather when my early memories. He beat me a lot. So kind of put a fear of a father figure in the picture. My dad gets out of prison, moves in, mom kicks dad to the curb. Early on, again, I was one of those things like we would probably teeter between upper, lower class, lower middle class, kind of teetering back and forth. And one of the best and worst things my mom could do for us was she just knew she was frugal, Dutch, right? Knew how to stretch a dollar. So it never felt like we were poor. I don't feel like we didn't feel like we were poor.
Right.
But you hear a lot of stories about people who use those moments of, man, I came from, and that's my driving motivation. I don't have that per se because I didn't feel like I went without. Right. She always made sure there was enough. Christmases felt very normal. She did all she could. So again, shout out to my mom for that baseline.
For sure.
Watch my dad. My dad was an entrepreneur, really to a degree by happenstance. So being a felon, going to the prison, black man in South Dakota, especially in the 80s, racism still around. And I watched him. I watched him face and struggle and do the various things. And so, though I can respect the things that some decisions he made, it hurt the family in a lot of ways. And so I watched, him still deal with a lot of that. Being a black-owned business, he owned a construction company. So watching him grind at the same token, then trying to take chances. And so really that instilled early on in me. I'll never forget a key moment in my life where, growing up, right, when I was in high school or school system, we had 5% diversity. So it was very clear you're othered. I remembered, fourth grade, girl come up to me at the pool and like, my friend thinks you cute, and then next thing now your lips are too big. And so again, the whole time, like, I don't fully belong, grade school, getting called certain names, you will butt for that.
For sure.
So, always having that kind of thing. But a key moment in my life was I grew into construction, if you would, because my dad had a construction company. So summertimes I'd work with him. So I built a little bit of work ethic in that. I was not afraid of hard work. And I would say my work ethic wasn't the greatest yet. And I was working out of town in Mitchell all week, construction for a different company, and came back on a Friday night. Come home, mom's on the couch, house is in boxes. She's crying. I can still remember the furniture. It was brown. What happened? I wasn't paying mortgage or paying the rent. Got evicted, 3 days to move out. And that wired a very definitive thing in my mind.
How old were you at this
19.
time? 19.
Be safe. Get a good job at the time. So I had a daughter at 17.
Okay.
17th birthday, matter of fact. I got a call from the girlfriend at the time. Congratulations. You're going to be a daddy. And life altering, right? And I would say like that was, one of the best things that could ever happen to me because though at the time I was a part-time knucklehead, kept me from being a full-time knucklehead. My friends and I, we wasn't up to any good.
Right.
In that space. And influences. We talk a lot about, you are the average sum total of the 5 closest people to you. Well, later in high school, when I started to define my friends, I had friends from inner city, Chicago, Milwaukee, Tennessee. And so a lot of my personality really developed in that moment of, though I didn't come from those places, again, all my friends were from those places.
Influenced by that.
Yeah. So, but in that space, and then having my daughter and then having her half time, right, you were responsible for more than just yourself. And so I think that was a key moment of my life. I know it was a key moment of my life that kept me from making as many bad decisions. Still made some bad decisions along the way. And so really launched off in life, like, I don't want to say aimless, but you don't strive for what is success. Success isn't for you. That's for other people and those type of things. And so found my way into, I want to say corporate at the time. I was 21. I worked a few different jobs, but 21, found my way into call centers. And that was a pivoting point where I was just hoping for $10 an hour somewhere. And stumbled upon a job, found out I was pretty decent at it. I remember having early conversations with Vonnie. We had moved in together. We've been friends for that long. And I said, man, you can make extra $200-$300 a month in bonus. That was a big deal.
Right.
But I was good at it. And initially, they used this back in the early 2000s when you could still win trips to different places. So that was another pivotal moment. So I was there only a few months, and I had won this trip to, we were supposed to go to Mexico. The 9/11 happened, so they pivoted and went to Florida. But I had never been on a plane, never seen the ocean. And so again, a lot of times, your worldview, your aspirations is defined by, again, who your parents were. Do you know anybody successful in your family? Like you had those uncles, faraway uncles that you kind of just assumed they were kind of successful, but you didn't. No one giving you game, no one doing any of that type of stuff. So that was a pivotal moment where now I'm on a plane and I see the ocean for the first time, and I'm like, man, I'm pretty decent at this. Then I won another trip, got to go to Mexico.
Wow.
Then I won another trip, Jamaica. Ended up winning 7 trips. And it was, I'll never forget it, it was about the 4th trip I was on. We were in St. Kitts, Virgin Islands. And it hit me for the first time, like, yo, I won this trip. They give you a couple $100 to spend. They send, dozens of people out there. And I'm like, I won this for free. And I'm looking around and I'm like, look at all these families. Look at these people. They paid to be here. And the first time I ever had that thought, man, what do they do for a living that they can pay? Because again, the purview of like, I didn't know it was a couple $1,000 you can actually go to Mexico. Like, it wasn't something you even considered. So now my perspective broadened and I started to climb up a little bit. I went back to school, got an associate's degree, then a bachelor's degree. And it was about really my early 20s, was a pivotal moment. I was lost, found God, started getting into self-development books, more Christian-based. But then mid-20s is when I got a hold of leadership books. One of my dad's bad habits that paid dividends for me is my dad got hot pockets. You got $20, you're going to spend that joint. You know what I mean? Just you get it, you spend it. And I was so impulse buying is a degree what that is. And I was at Sam's Club and I saw this book and I started getting into reading. I see these books $7.99 or something like that. And I had never heard of this John C. Maxwell. But $7.99, like the titles looked intriguing. I bought them.
Right.
And reading them, I'm like, what is this? How is this, man, where has this been? And just grew a slow but steady hunger of like, man, these guys, he's saying something.
Right.
And so that started changing my trajectory towards leadership. So fast forward all that, I ended up climbing the corporate ladder all the way to running Capital One. I was the site director for the credit card collections division.
Okay.
And that was a pivotal moment as well. You really
like off Rice, was it, or up north?
Benson.
Benson.
Yeah,
okay.
So now you find yourself in this role. I'm running a $10 million operation, 200 people in my department. And that was really that was probably the seedling of Think3D, unknown. So Vonnie, myself, and a good friend of mine, Thomas Martin, Thomas was the first one. He was always the more ambitious hustler idea. He was like, we should start a consulting company. So he planted that seed of consulting. Vonnie at the time was in sales. I kind of knew the business management side. He was on the finance side, Thomas was. Planted a seed, nothing really stuck, but again, I had built myself a 6-figure job, all those type of things. And recognized, man, I built a high performing culture. Like we had, think about this for a second. We had customer experience scores in credit card collections that was better than our customer service department.
Wow. From
building a healthy culture. So like when I got to the moment of putting into practice all these years, like I got an MBA in business management. I kind of honestly just poo-poo that aside, but it's like that was cool. But the books, I never had a mentor directly. But John Maxwell was my mentor because I kept reading all of his books.
Wow.
So I got to see the power of what that could do for your life.
I want to rewind it a little bit because there's a lot there. First, I want to go back to when your father's coming home from prison. What was that? Do you remember? Well, first of all, how old were you? And then secondly, do you remember kind of your thought process on the time as all that was happening?
No, I was 6, kindergarten to first grade, so that transition in there. You know, I don't remember a lot because I remember obviously with a lot of trauma with my stepdad of just the abuse.
Sure. I
never saw him. I now in hindsight, my mom, he put hands on my mom, but I never saw it, right? So it was kind of in hiding.
Wow.
But I had such a huge fear of a father figure. So when my dad stepped in, he had a couple pivotal moments that I'll give you one as an example. So when I was that summer when he kind of moved in, I was playing softball, going out for softball. I played t-ball the year before, and I asked anyone, how hard is it to get a 6-year-old to stand still? 6-year-old boy of all things. That's almost impossible. And I'm in line to batting practice, whatever. My dad takes me to the thing. Kid in front of me takes my hat, throws it on the ground. We wrestle around, just mess around. My dad walks up. If you can't take this seriously, you're not playing. Tells the coach he won't be back. Never played again. Now our brains are a make sense machine. What does your brain make of that situation? I did something wrong.
Right.
Again, I'm already got a fear of a father figure.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a huge blow to my confidence. And again, unintentional. I've gone back since and thought about that. Like, again, he was now a felon. He could have been trying to get jobs that day and got turned down 3 or 4 times and just provide for fame. I don't know what he was going through that day.
For sure.
Right. Again, not justifying by any stretch, but those pivotal moments. And so again, but slowly within that acclimated again, just having both my parents there. My sister, who's 2 years older, she ended up playing club sports. So it provided, I would call it a semblance of somewhat normalcy. Like my dad wasn't a bad dad by any stretch at all. Like he wasn't abusive and those type of things, nowhere near what I had experienced, right? But so it gave us a sense of, again, somewhat, I would call it felt middle class, even though I think economically we were probably on the lower end of that.
Okay.
So
they made it feel right.
Yeah.
Right. I also wanted to go to the point where you're in your early 20s and you talk about finding God. What was happening at that point in your life where that happened? Because typically people get at some of their lowest points when they find God or they find that inner light and really start to pick themselves up.
Yeah.
Basically.
Right. Well, there was a song you were listening to at that point in time too on Rerun. What's the point? So I want to hear all about that.
Yeah. So I was in deep depression. Having a daughter at the time, I was actually 19 years old at the exact moment. And I had gotten a car accident. Nothing bad about my back. Windshield broke out. And I had the money to fix it. So I had to put a plastic over it. So everywhere you go, it's just a reminder like, man, your life ain't nothing. Man, your life ain't nothing. And it was DMX slipping. I'm falling. I can't get up. And it just, I played that song, no joke, on repeat for a solid month, 2 months, just that song. Cause it was just, I was in a mood and I was just like, man, what's the point? And at the time, again, thankfully, again, having a daughter, I never had suicidal thoughts because it was like, I got a daughter to take care of. But what's the point of life? Was this, aim, all that type of stuff. And I had this girl at the time that I was talking to, and she was just like, come to church. At that point, when you like, why not? Like, what I got to lose? And it was you hear a lot of these stories where that first sermon, it was like no one else had to be there. That was for me. That message was for me. And at the time of my life, again, I wasn't making a lot of great choices, but it was something different. You could taste a little bit of positivity. And so then I went back again and that just set me on a whole different trajectory of, getting into the Bible and really changing me even from my friend group, or again, a lot of Saturday nights where Vonnie and I had been living together probably since 2022, 23. They'd be going out to the bars, and I'll go to Bible study, right? So even in that moment of those small moments of separation of investing into myself differently helped to start to change my mindset.
Right.
Principle of exposure, that in which you're exposed to influences who you become. So it just sort of gave me a different trajectory, a different shape, and hope, right? Hope and inspiration. So that was a big moment for me.
That's a great illustration, and I can just see a lot of that stuff when you talk about it. It's easy to picture, and at this point, you know, from there, finding John Maxwell, really taking on those teachings. What is it like when you were thinking about consulting? Was like something like Think3D and Leaders of Tomorrow something that was thought of then?
No. So the consulting, right, if the seed was planted, and again, I'll go back to seeing my mom at 19, play it safe. Again, I did the same thing. I work hard. I was a hard worker. I developed work ethic. I always say, people often see me now and they think, oh, Tamien is this disciplined dude. I would say just one statement, like, I got fired from John Morrell or Smithfield. Like, who gets fired from Smithfield? Because I couldn't make it to work on time. Like, I got fired from a couple jobs. I grew up just in time. If it took 8 minutes to get there, we left 8 minutes before. Right. And then if there was too many red lights, it ain't my fault. Like, we just, just in time. And so that was my mentality, because that's what I learned. Yeah. But I started to develop, especially when I got into leadership, and you start, again, you get these jewels from people that have walked the path before you, because I've never had a direct mentor. But again, if you learn to extract from books and other people, and now you start to watch and observe what does success look like, and you watch their behaviors, you start to see that. And so as I started to get into that space and sort of climb the corporate ladder, and I climbed quickly. So like I took, when I said, all right, I'm gonna get into leadership, because I had enough, I don't say I had enough trips, but like, when you first go from an hourly employee to salary, there's usually a step back, especially if you're good in a sales job where you're getting bonuses, right? Right. But I had to make that leap to go forward. But now when I had a first chance to become a leader, if you would, all these things that I had been sewing into myself through these books, I had a chance to put them into practice. So that's how I climbed. Really, when I got my first management job, up until becoming site director, happened in a couple years. Like literally, I was getting the next promotion. I'll give you this: the greatest piece of career advice I ever got. A gentleman by the name of Rick Zinda. This is back early 2000s, where in banking or anything financial, if you didn't have a 4-year degree, like, you just don't move up. Like, that was a status quo. You had to have a 4-year degree. Rick Zinda didn't even have an associate's degree, and he's the senior vice president, ran 3 different sites. And so he came to Sioux Falls one time with one of his sites, and I said, man, can I get 30 minutes with you? I just want to pick your, how'd you do it? If you climbed all this way, I had my degree, but like, how did you do it? Yeah. He said, Tamien, the best advice I could ever give you is always act in the next role. And it was perfect advice, because I was a credit card collector. And if you're a credit card collector, a very selfish mindset, because again, the better I am over my peers, that's more money for me, right? So again, you're based off how much better you are than everyone else, right? And so at the time when I was, I just got into a frontline manager role. Tamien Dysart was going to be top 3 in the nation. We competed against 2 other sites. So Tamien Dysart, there's like 16, 17 teams. We were going to be top 3 every month. I knew the skills, I could teach it, and we were. But Sioux Falls was last out of all 3 sites as a whole, right? And when he gave me that advice, I was like, man, okay. So I took a step back. I said, why are we last place? And I looked at the numbers. I could figure it out, promise to pay percentage. So then I started pulling in my peer group, and I said, what can we do? I didn't say, what, you ain't doing your job, I'm pulling in my weight, what are you doing wrong? I said, what can we do? In a short 3-4 months, we became the #1 site. And so when it came time for that next promotion, I think I had been a frontline manager 16 months. Everyone else was like 5 to 7 years plus experience. Yeah. But the site director, he knew who was pulling those meetings together. He knew I was already acting in that next role. So then I got that next role. The next 3 promotions I got all the way up to site director, I didn't even interview for. Wow. Because they was like, I got to the next role, and I said, okay, what's the next role worried about, right? So again, in life, I always say to people, ask yourself what things is your boss concerned about? And you show yourself an asset, and you show that you can think at that next level. Nothing's stopping you. Just be observant. Right. And when you start to develop that type of stuff. So anyway, all that being said, it got me to a space of site director, all that type of stuff. So I was very safe. Then one day, my manager came into town unexpected, and my right-hand man, Herc, he was like, this ain't good. Like, when people pop up unexpectedly, and again, basically, I had, out of the 4 collection sites, I had hands down the best sites. My numbers were better than customer service and things. We were the best site by a landslide, but I was the most junior site director. And something happened in legislation overnight. 1/4 of our accounts became undialable. Got to close one of the sites. So though I had the best numbers, I was the most junior dude out. So that in the moment of taking risk or not taking risk, most people see entrepreneurism. It is a big risk.
Right.
But what's a greater risk? There's no such thing as a safe bet. Right. I did everything. And we knew that was floating out there. Our mantra was like, I want to make the person that says we're going to close Sioux Falls sound like the dumbest person in the room. Right. That was our mantra. And we put that, but that still wasn't enough. So when that happened, went to Wells Fargo for a couple of years, and it was early on again. So now there's no safe bet. And I was like, I told Vonnie, I was like, let's figure this thing out.
Yeah.
And so that was the seedling of we're going to do this thing.
That's amazing because, from multiple conversations that we've had previously, we've always discussed kind of what Zacchaeus and I are doing to develop Overstepping Poverty. And that's one, we used to meet each week. We'd go out to lunch and we discuss, of course, like what are our business ideas, and we put them on paper. And some of those ideas, they just kind of got tossed in the trash until finally we're like, Overstepping Poverty, like no matter what, we're doing this, right? So what I want to know for you and Vonnie, getting together, that momentum that you guys built, what was that like? Can you take us through that process of building Think3D?
So at the time, so I'm a department manager out at Wells Fargo. I ran the back office of student loans. And so I'm grinding, right? I'm the breadwinner of my family, probably working 50, 60 hours a week, like a 5 to 5, 12-hour days. And then I get home, right? I got young girls at home. So I tell Vonnie, I said, look, he doesn't have kids. And I was like, my girls go to bed about 8:30, show up at my house every Monday at 9:00, right? And that's what's important, right? When you have that stepping stone, not only, because one of my favorite quotes is from Les Brown. He said, want shows up in conversation, expectation shows up in behavior. And everyone want to talk about, man, wouldn't it be cool if we did the thing? Yeah. You get with your friends and they talk about it. Yeah. But do you have the behavior? I said, don't call me, don't text me. I want to hear at 9:00.
Right.
Again, tonight we doing this? No, we doing this, right? If we go and do this, right? And without fail, every Monday night. And went down to my home office. And so we sat, it took us a year. We eyed it because there was no jumping out the window with this thing, right? Again, I had a well-paying job. I couldn't just jump out and do this thing. But we developed that. We started going to a couple of conferences. We started to ideate, right? We met a key guy that kind of gave us some insight. And in that, we met a dude that said, man, y'all got your philosophy. You got a book here. And he happened to have Jeremy Brown over at Throne Publishing. He had a process where they could extract this information from you and help you get it into book form. Because I'm not a natural writer. Vonnie doesn't write anything down. Like, how do you collaborate between two individuals and put your ideas? We have been working on for a long time. Both had an extensive experience building high successful teams and those type of things. So that really built the philosophy of Think3D, solidified it down into actual book form, the 3D, the 3 dimensions of a healthy culture. And so from that, we had a 5-year plan initially because I'm like, man, to unwind this thing, to go from a 6-figure job to starting your own business, it's going to take some time. But when the book came out in 2016, people were like, yes. And coach has been a buzzword for the last decade. Right. But again, obviously, people didn't know what that really took. And so people were starting to gravitate to the philosophy. And that's when Vonnie's like, I'm going all in. He said he sold his house. He moved downtown, reduced his debt, emptied his 401k to sustain him a little bit. He said, it was September of 16. He went all in. And then 9 months later, again, obviously I had a little more responsibilities and stuff like that. 9 months later, I was trying to play both. I was trying to get the business moving and still work 60 hours a week and be a family man. And it just wasn't working. So had the conversation. It's like, I'm betting on me. I'm betting on us. And launched 2016. Think3D. So
how does that relationship continue to grow for you guys? I just want to know, like, between friendship and a business relationship, how do you keep two separate but still be able to grow in both?
A couple keys. We asked ourselves 3 questions before we really did the thing. Number one, is there a need for it in the marketplace? And we knew we could see that this was coming. Culture was changing in a different space, right? Yeah. Number 2, are we good at it? And Vonnie had proven over and over he could produce high-performing teams. I had produced high-performing cultures and departments, those type of things. So we knew we were good at it. But third, why does it matter? Are we in it for the money? Because again, I was making the money. I was making really good money. I could be sitting cush right now. But the reality was making a difference, which our belief statement at Think3D was kind of developed out of that we believe that we can better the world by improving the way people live through improving the way people work. Mm-hmm. And we saw the ills of that, right? We saw the ills. There's a story, I don't know if I shared it when he was on the podcast, but again, a gentleman he worked with, that his wife was going through depression, had 2 young kids at home. And because work was taken out of him so much, he's like, I know she needs me, but I don't got it. Because work was just draining him. And then when he went home, he had a 2 and 4-year-old, like he had to give every ounce he had there. And it's like, we have to do this differently. Mm-hmm. And so that because we are aligned and helping people and wanting to do something beyond just make money, that's a great starting point. And then secondarily to that is having the very transparent conversations. Like Bonnie is one of those things. Again, we have full trust. We've been, really, he's my best friend. We trust each other fully. I don't question his motive. I don't question his heart. Now, it's important that along the way you work out the semantics, right? Again, how much one person is working, who's taking on what responsibilities and those type of things, right? Again, naturally, I had to wear the CEO hat. So I do a lot of stuff that I don't love doing. I'm just more equipped to actually run the business, right? Which then frees him up to just be Bonnie and be able to, again, he is at his best when he's dealing with corporate leaders and various things, right? I always say, if his mouth's not running, we're not making money. Don't ask him to write nothing down, put him on a mic, put him in front of people, and that's his flow, right? So having that transparent conversation along the way, and especially even as your business shifts, we're 10 people on the team now, what's those next few positions that we need to hire, right? So being very transparent and honest, and I think it's important that you tie to a bigger why beyond yourself.
Absolutely. And I think that's important for, a lot of our listeners and viewers, what you just said, because we're not the only ones that have that question on when you are in a friendship and you start to do a business relationship with your friends. Some people are like, no, don't mix friends, family, and business, and most of that is because they lack, the communication. They lack the things that you just said as far as to really build something out of that together, the trust on that. So I think that's important. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
I think that leads us in greatly to a podcast that you've been doing with the mayor here in Sioux Falls, Burden of Leadership. And like I mentioned to you before this, I got to listen to some of that. And I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome being able to get the perspective of you guys who are doing what you're doing and have been through a lot of the same steps that, we've been at, or people that are coming up under you are at currently. What is, if you could just talk about the name of like the burden of leadership, what is, the burden of leadership? Yeah,
like a burden is something, a choice. Like we all have choices in life and you choose to pick these things up. And I think one of the biggest challenges that we have as community leaders, again, early on, we chose to make less money to impact more. Because it's like, again, you give me, $10 million a year, that's great, all the type of stuff, right? And you it's on its way at some point. But then what do you do with that? What you always say when we talk about what is success, like that's really core of that. We always ask folks, and we've been through LOT, is do you have a personal or custom definition of what success is to you? 90 to 95% of people don't have their own personal or custom definition of success. And so 2 things that's important about that is, A, if you don't have your own custom definition of success, will you ever be successful? And the answer is absolutely not. You can't hit a destination that's not defined. Then what happens then by default, people call success what the world says success is: money, power, fame. But that in by itself is not real success, because you can see people on TV or social who have that, and celebrities have a higher than average divorce rate, drug usage, all those type of things, because money, power, fame is by itself is not it. Right. You take the mayor. Mayor built from scratch a multi-million-dollar company. He could have just rode off. He could still be riding high, making millions and stuff like that. But it was like there was more than that. So when you choose to pick those things up, and I think we always talk about this word sacrifice. Be clear, everyone's sacrificing something. Sacrifice is to give up something of value for something else. Well, what are you willing to sacrifice? Now, most people, unfortunately, sacrifice their potential success for the comfort of the moment. They conform to the now because it's too hard, all those type of things. On the other side of it, if you truly want to make a difference, and this is the type of stuff, right, that you hear Jeff Bezos talk about, I think he calls it like regret theorem or something like that, where when he was choosing to start Amazon, is this something that I'll regret if I try or if I don't try? There's two sides of it. And I think that's one of those things when the mayor was called to run for mayor, and he's like, will I regret this? Because he said, I want to be at highest service to the community. Well, how do you serve the community in a different way? Same for us. Like we're on the cusp where I just started another company called Elevate You, where we're building a personal development app. And so in the next couple of years, I'll have multiple multi-million-dollar companies. I could have got here years ago. I was skilled in all these different things. Vonnie and I, we've been this nice at what we do since. Now we're getting better, of course, but we've been this nice since day one. But we chose to sacrifice certain monetary gain to start programs like Leaders of Tomorrow and do it's hard work, and at times it's frustrating work. So there's a burden that comes with that. When you choose, I'm going to choose to pick that up because, like, my fuel, my drug of choice is changing people's lives. Like when people say, man, you changed my life. Like where I took a couple hours ago, I was at Washington High School. We're next gen. Like I'm these young, they looking at you and I'm saying, I'm giving y'all game. They don't even know how much game they're really getting. I said, this is the stuff that can take you wherever you want to go.
Right.
I could go make 3 times as much money again right now. Like Vonnie, we're building a bigger relationship with American Eagle. Like we could spend all the time. Like we gonna be on a global scale in a couple of years.
Right.
We could have been doing that, but if I made all the money in the world, I'd still want to come back and help our community.
Right.
So the burden of that is it comes with sacrifices. It's frustrating at times where people miss the message or maybe think it's a money grab. Like money grab, like we could be doing this over here, but there's a burden in that.
Right.
In that. But we know that, we acknowledge that, and we still choose to pick it up because along the way, changing lives, again, our belief statement, we really believe this. We can better the world by improving the way people live through improving the way people work.
I agree.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
That's really awesome.
Now, for my question for you is with Think3D, of course, you're starting to grow from it, of course. Obviously, you're still behind that. But now you guys also have a nonprofit. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so nonprofit derives. So in 2018, we started this program, Leaders of Tomorrow. The core of Leaders of Tomorrow. So what came about with that, right? You can look across the landscape of Sioux Falls, right? 200,000 plus people. You see 40% diversity coming out of our school system. But you look across the landscape of CEOs, boards, community leadership, elected official, all those type of things. How much color do you see? Not a lot.
Right.
And Vonnie and I, being 2 young men of color, and especially having a growing business, we were getting asked all the time, hey, love to have you on the board. We're trying to diversify. So we kept hearing that, right? And you look back, like, where's the pipeline? There's not a whole bunch of folks that are in the pipeline again, there's a readiness for sure to sit on these boards. And if we're being transparent, right, is you can look back to saying, in the 80s and 90s, there was still racism. My dad faced it. My uncles faced that stuff. So there wasn't, I never aspired for this because I saw the ills of it wasn't for me, all those type of things, right? So we launched Leaders Tomorrow with the focus of building up leaders that will lead our community into the future, but being able to provide it in a way that was the same content that we give to our corporate clients, your First Premiers, your Averas, those type of things, give that same content to people who may not be able to afford that.
Right.
You look at like a Leadership South Dakota program I went through a couple of years ago. It's like $3,000 to go through that. So unless you work for a company that's going to pay for you to go through like something like that, again, you see less than 5% diversity. Right. Not because they're trying to keep people out, but there's just not a lot of mid-level people in organizations of color that get sent to these things, right? And again, the people that are currently in positions is not that they're no longer, I don't believe there's racism still exists in that same way, any way, shape, or form. They're just not aware of that. Well, being a person of color, I'm aware of that. So we launched Leaders Tomorrow with that idea of building leaders with an emphasis to make sure that our programs, we have at least 40% representation similar to what's coming out of our school system, so we can build leaders of color to be prepared to step into these positions, those type of things.
That's awesome.
It morphed beyond just emerging leaders, your 18 to 40, 50-year-olds, and we got into justice impacted. We got into specialty cohorts for teachers and nonprofits. Again, truly taking this content and how do we seek out community funding and resources and grants so we can provide it at no cost to groups like teachers and nonprofits that they don't have access to this type of stuff on this level
For sure.
or just as impacted. People that are coming out of the prison system, again, who most of them, you hear their story, they never stood a chance.
Man.
So that passion out of that was huge. Now, the burden beyond that, again, we look at Leaders Tomorrow, it's not a Think 3D program. This is a community program because we're seeking
For sure.
community funding. And so launching Bridging the Gap there's a lot of things that are beyond just the scope of Leaders of Tomorrow, our community table talks. I'm one of the catalysts, myself and another gentleman helped launch the Neighborhood Soccer League, right? Providing free neighborhood soccer now in 8 Title I neighborhoods across our city. So the needs go beyond just us, and we need to help. We needed to recruit help. And so we have an amazing 12-person board that helps guide and gives us perspective, right? Because sometimes I can be guilty of doing too much because I care so much. But sometimes I pump the brakes on that because our community at large is not ready to support everything that we need, whether that's homelessness or justice impact. I don't want to say they don't care. They're just not connected at the same point.
Yeah.
So having this nonprofit to be able to help draw some separation, because there's just some people, again, if you don't know what Think 3D does, it could seem like, oh, Leaders of Tomorrow is how we make money. We get paid about 60% on the dollar, right? 60 cents on the dollar for what we do corporately, like all in when you talk about having to find the money, find the people, qualify them, do the program, and then foster the community afterwards. Or I can just go give the same program to this company straight A to B.
Right.
And so all that's said is that's what Bridging the Gap was, to help tell that story, tell that storytelling and get more people engaged in that, as well as provide direction and guidance, because ultimately Leaders of Tomorrow is going to live on beyond Tamien and Bonnie, right? You're building leaders. And so again, in the next 5 years, you're going to see other people leading beyond this. And so again, this isn't we started it, yes, but it will live beyond Tamien and Bonnie.
Yeah.
So that was the point of a nonprofit. So again, this could continue to impact the city of Sioux Falls in perpetuity beyond Bonnie and myself.
Yeah. No, I think it is awesome with all of that. And you talk about the lack of diversity when it comes to, city council and whatever, when it comes to politics. Has it ever been something where you've thought about you getting into politics?
Yes, I've thought about it, been asked.
Yeah.
They say never say never. Never. I mean, it's honestly, it's where's your power zone at? Will you be great at it? I probably, right? Again, but especially now, seeing directly Dawn Marie on school board, and you hear these things like my power zone is multiplied in building leaders.
For sure.
Right? Because I always said this, it's not an easy thing. Like some people can just, again, there's a lot of companies that they just make money and then they can give back that money. That's great. We need that, right? It's a lot of work to do the things. Again, hats off to anybody who runs for office, state legislator, city council. Because again, what they get paid, it's not worth the headache sometimes. Now, someone has to do it for sure.
Yeah.
Which again, I applaud at the highest level. I know my power zone, right? If I stepped in to do any of those arenas, I don't have the time to do this other stuff, which I'm really good at and effective as well. And so I ask myself, how do I have a maximum impact? And I'm going to impact millions of people. For sure. Well, if I ran for a city council and did that term, that's going to slow down that global impact. Like literally in the next 5 years, I will have footprints in other countries starting to impact people. So for me, it's not about, Sioux Falls, this is my home. I want to give all these type of things here, but also to a degree, like there's a part of that profit in your own town. Like some people don't recognize, like, I don't say we're not bigger than Sioux Falls, but like we're not confined by this. Like we will be a global company in the next 5 to 8 years. Between multiple companies doing that type of stuff. Now, the beautiful part is I need to go out there to get some of those resources to pull them back in here, because some people just can't see the vision. Right. And so just to be able to do like a lot of our storytelling components with what we do, we pay for that ourselves. Like our philanthropic give back is we just pay for the videos ourselves because it needs to get told. Right. So politics, shout out to everyone who does that. You'll never see Tamien on a ballot.
There you go.
Never.
Yes. No, well, I appreciate you answering all of those questions. And I just think it's so cool to see the type of impact that you do have. Like, so I want to give you your flowers, because there's conversations, and it's been years at this point, where people are like, it was before when I didn't go through your programs of Leaders of Tomorrow, and they're like, dude, you haven't done this, you need to do this. And then going through it and then seeing opportunities where there's people that need what you guys are providing, and be like, I need you to go to Leaders of Tomorrow and get your mind right, get into an environment where, you know, everybody is there to learn. If you're deciding to go to something like that, you want to become a better person in one way or another. So kudos to you for, you know, creating a space like that, because I think it is really going to change not just Sioux Falls, but, you know, and not even just the Midwest. I agree. I see this going global. The people you're going to affect is worldwide, and it's commendable for sure. So thank you for that.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Absolutely. You know, before we get into our next segment of this episode here, I do just have one question for you for that. And that's going to be, what do you feel like is the biggest thing that needs changed within our community?
Connectivity. You can't have compassion from a distance. And, you know, you can, what do you think about homelessness? What do you think about the justice impacted? Go engage with somebody who's homeless. Go engage and sit down and hear someone's story who's been through the justice system. You can't, and again, it's one of those things like how it's easy to have an opinion. Everyone's got an opinion about something, but like how informed it is. And that's the problem we have in this country. Everyone's got an opinion about something.
Right.
And oftentimes you don't recognize, like this is one of the things, like Vonnie and I, we have a statement from early on in Think3D. Do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? I don't care at all about being right. I have no ego in that. I want the most effective thing. And when you start to think about that, again, most people, that's what I love. I shot a video a few weeks ago, Man in the Arena. And it's based off of Teddy Roosevelt's quote. Like, I don't respect the man who ain't in the thing doing the thing. Get your hands dirty.
Right.
Go get connected to the thing. Because this is, I'm on record as saying this. There's a lot of ills that we're trying to tackle in our community that 15, 20 years from now, Sioux Falls is going to be a different, we already know it'll be a different version.
Yeah.
A lot of it we're not going to like. And a lot of it's happening right now, and there's not enough people concerned about it because you live on the outskirts. It's someone else going to do it, all those different things. And you don't recognize then, and how do you then support people like not even just us, but other individuals who are willing to go get their hands dirty and go do the work, and so how do you support those individuals? Right. So getting connected to see that, because even if you didn't care, right? Even if you didn't care at all, let's take justice impacted, for instance. Even if you didn't really care about the justice impacted population, right? Do you want to save community? Well, yeah, it's something everybody wants, right? 95% of people get out, right? Well, what kind of community do you want to have? And when you understand their stories,
right?
Again, most of them, the vast majority, well over 50% confidently, never really stood a chance. Well, at current, go to Joe Foss, right? Most of those kids, you can tell what kind of trajectory they're on.
Right.
And you could still change somebody right now. But how dare anyone have an opinion on that without being willing to mentor or contribute financially or do something to curb something while we still can? And so that's one thing, like we say all the time, like Vonnie says, like Sioux Falls isn't necessarily special. We early. Go trace Omaha back to 200,000 people. You know what it looks like? A lot like this. But it grew without the intentionality. Our core saying at Think3D, a culture will emerge whether intended or not. But if it's not one you invest in, it's going to be one that you pay for. So there's things happening right now that our community is going to look in shades that's not going to be so great 15 years from now. And we can do stuff right now, but we don't have enough people tethered to it, caring enough about it to say we can. Again, it's solvable to a degree right now, but you grow. We're growing 5,000 to 7,000 people a year.
Yeah,
you get to 300. You get another 100,000 people in this joint. It's going to look a whole lot different.
Right.
And if you're not investing into steering it where you want to go, again, if you don't invest in it on the front end, man, you're going to pay for it. So our community needs to get connected to, find a problem. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's underserved youth. I don't care if it's justice impacted, if it's homelessness. Find a major ugly problem, because we keep making these lists of best places to live. And I love Sioux Falls. Born and raised, love Sioux Falls. But in all the hard stuff, man, we suck like everybody else. Do the math.
Right.
Recidivism, suck like everybody else. Homelessness per capita, suck like everyone. There's, in all the hard stuff, we ain't no better than nobody else. And that's the part where I'm really, you see, passionate about it. Like when you talk about the values of our community, show me your values. Don't tell me, show me. And that's where we need more people connected to the issues at hand. And I guarantee you they'll change their tune after hearing the stories and they'll have more compassion. And you ain't got to do everything.
Right.
What something can you do?
Right. I see it on a lot of levels. And I've talked about this before, but when I'm coaching and I see, Vonnie, myself, and Manny are coaching at O'Gorman, and we go to these schools where I guess you can say there would be more or less fortunate children that go to, and then you see their behaviors, you see the coaches' behaviors, and it is a real problem. It's a real problem because I'm coaching a few years ago before I was coaching with Manny and them. I was coaching at Patrick Henry, and there was another position open for coaching, and I had a few guys that had played college ball apply, like, hey, this would be a good fit for you. He doesn't get it. A teacher at the school gets it. First thing he says when he walks into the coach's office, I don't know a lot about football, but I know I get paid to be here. And I'm like, that's an issue.
It's an issue, man.
That's an issue. You're not even getting paid a lot. So it's like, how far will you go just to get paid? And we need people that actually want to be there to actually help these kids grow further than just football, further than just basketball. Like, we have to instill these values because, like a lot of kids, they don't have that father figure, So when you are their first football coach and you're the first one, like, getting on their ass, that's going to make them feel some type of way. But if you're able to help them through that, help them, battle that guy in their head that, Manny and Vonnie always talk about, the hardest person you'll ever face is the person in your head. So if you don't have somebody that's helping you learn how to do that, you're gonna lack the confidence to ever even try to get beyond that point. So I agree. People got to get more involved for sure.
They do. And talking about involvement and just even what you guys have done at Think3D, at Leaders of Tomorrow, and all the other things that you guys have your hands on and are completing currently here. You guys have helped so many people. Well, one, just right out the bat, 500 students that you guys have graduated.
625 now.
625.
Hey.
Wow.
Yep.
Congrats on that. Seriously, that's huge. And you're developing these leaders of tomorrow, to me, that's overstepping poverty, And so, of course, we all sit here and we all have a different understanding of what overstepping poverty is. So my question to you is, what does overstepping poverty mean to you?
Mindset. It's, you go back to, I talk all the time about, the average person has 60,000 thoughts a day. And almost all of your thoughts up until age of 18 had almost nothing to do with you. You didn't choose who your parents were. You didn't choose where you lived, what schools you went to. And even though you chose your friends, you chose from friends from same neighborhoods and same socioeconomic statuses and all those type of things. And so you adopt all these behaviors. And then we asked that question in LOT of power of culture. How many of you would go back and live the same exact life as your parents lived? And maybe 3%, maybe 3 to 5% at best. Right?
It seems high.
I think some people are like, parts of it,
Yeah.
But so with that, like, again, what is your mindset? It's the firing and wiring of brain cells. Again, when a baby comes in this world, they have a blank slate. And then they learn and they see you're about to have a kid. They're going to watch how you move and eat and all the different things. And they mimic. And so these nerve cells are firing together and they wire together. And that starts to build their personality. And so when you go through, again, people that come from adverse circumstances and they see the poverty and I'm not good with money or all these narratives, right? Because one of the things I say in All Through My Life, your life and your success will be defined by the narrative you choose to tell yourself. Well, most people don't lock in on that's a choice. That's just who I am. What you want me to do about it? Because they can't escape the prison of the past thinking. And again, poverty is a mindset. How do you have a Jay-Z who grew up like he did and now is a billionaire?
Right.
It was overstepping it was a step at a time. Like again, you go back and listen to early music. Like it was like he was talking at one point when he Reasonable Doubt, I'm a 6-figure dude. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Now I'm a 7-figure dude. And then and there's stepping stones to that. And again, take the money away from it.
Right.
It's clearly and definitively, can you say you're the next best version of yourself? And a lot of that goes back to that question. Do you know what success looks like to you? Because if you don't know what success is, right, I always say the two oldest questions that mankind has asked of ourselves, right? You go back to just thousands of years, whatever it is. I imagine people thousands and thousands of years looking up at the stars and asking two questions over the time. Who am I? Why am I here? Identity and purpose. If you don't know who you are, right? And that's where, again, most people chase success where? Externally. Oh, if I get the house, then I'll be happy. If I get the new thing, then I'll be happy. And they get it and they realize that in self isn't it. The real secret of success is only found through self-discovery. You have to go inward to find out who you are. Well, again, how do you find those pathways, right? That's why we have a program like Leaders Tomorrow, and then Author My Life gets you into more detail, so it shows more of that. But then secondarily, purpose, because again, if you think it's just money, if it's not tethered to service in some way, shape, or form, that too will leave you empty. And when you look around, and the lack of examples, I challenge everyone, go look at your spheres of influence, your friends, your family. I love this Nipsey Hussle quote. He said, if you look at your inner sphere and you're not inspired, you don't have a circle, you have a cage. It's like, ooh, you know what I mean? Like, you are the average sum total of the people that you're around. So again, what kind of mindset did you get from your parents? Again, for the longest time, I've recognized, again, I love my mother to death, that poverty mindset, because my grandparents grew up coming out of the Great Depression, right? My mom would still wash out Ziploc bags and all that type of stuff. That's a poverty mindset. Now, I'm not telling you to be wasteful, right? But like, again, choose to recycle and do the things versus, again, like I have to because I got to pinch pennies, right? If you don't learn, like what is money is currency. It's just it's 200 years ago there wasn't dollar bills and those type of things. It was a different form of currency. So I go back to mindset, because energy is currency. Your thoughts are producing currency. Literally. Well, every day when you wake up, 60,000. So again, if you put a monetary value to 60,000 thoughts a day, let's say each one was worth a penny, right? All right, that's a couple $1,000s though. $6,000 you got, you know what I'm saying, in currency every day. No different than you had real dollars where you choose to invest your dollars. If you just spend it on whatever, or spend it on McDonald's and spend it on whatever, there's no return on that investment. Similar with thoughts. If you just on social media and you let your thoughts go, you have to be able to identify, man, again, you go back to books like Think and Grow Rich and As a Man Thinketh from James Allen. Truly, what you think about most of the time, you become. So Overstepping Poverty to me is how do you start to get on a pathway of elevating your mindset? It doesn't happen overnight. For me, it started with finding God, then finding, again, I had some books that kind of a lot of books that influenced me. I got some leadership books, all those type of things. And every step of the way, I started to become the next better version of myself. I didn't recognize that was happening at the time.
My next question on that, just kind of building off of that, was like, for those people that are investing in themselves and they're doing the personal work and they're working on the things that they need to, but they're not quite seeing the results that they know they are feeling and they're seeing in their head. Like, as you were not seeing those things, what kept you going? Especially as being somebody that wasn't always disciplined.
Honestly, like, it's one of those, what alternative do you have? And I was, for whatever reason, I was able to be observant enough. I knew what I didn't want. And that's where a lot of we also, this next generation, when we first launched Think3D, we were asked to, millennials, they don't, and then, like, they may not know what they want, but they know what they don't want. They don't want to go just live their parents' life. Right. So I'm not going to go just work a job for 40 years because I saw how my parents came home. That looks miserable. Right. So that's the stepping stone of that. But along the way, as you start to, again, it's no different than if you do 100 push-ups a day, what's inevitably going to happen? You're going to get stronger. And you may not see the results right away, whatever, but over time, compound interest. And that's where, like, especially this, I would say this next generation is what social media has done in a bad way is, you think back when I was growing up, you know what my sphere of exposure was? Your close friends, family, community. Without social media, you only knew about your neighborhood. So your wants were limited down. And even though we know that what you see on social media is a lot of, I'll call it falsehood, if you would, is you're watching people's highlight reels, and even some fake highlight reels. We know that consciously, but subconsciously, what you're exposed to. So you see that, man, you watch the movie. Like, think about even today how numb we are to people dying because you watch movies all the time, right? So what you're exposed to matters. And so along the way, again, knowing that this mental exercise, you cannot not do the work and to not improve your life.
Right.
Period.
It's a law.
And that's where I say, like, the way I'll give this example. Life has its ups and downs. We know this, right? And we know success is not a straight line, all that type of stuff. You hear that. What's the greatest investment in the world you can make? Into your mind. Because what happens is if you start to get on this trajectory of personal development, it's a guarantee, money back guarantee that I cannot, every book you read, you got smarter. I love when I get on an airplane because I try to read a book in the flight. I landed smarter than I was when I took off, right? This, that simplicity. And so every book I read, now I read probably 50 to 60 books a year. And I know that I'm going to be smarter. If I did almost just nothing with it just by exposure,
right,
I'm going to be on this path of becoming the next better version of myself. Now, the importance of that, when life has its ups and downs, it's polarity to the next better version of you. So now 5 years down the road, your lows up here are way higher than your highs way back here.
Right.
Simply by the money back guarantee investment that will never fail you.
Yourself.
Your mindset.
Yeah.
So greatest ROI of all time. And along the way too, zoom this out. Let me get this last piece. Zoom this out. I was reading 2 summers ago, I was reading Tony Robbins' new book on health, Life Force. And the modern technologies they about to come out with is sci-fi stuff. Like they're 3D printing all their organs, all the stuff. So you're going to start seeing people hit 120, 140, all those type of things. Like I was saying this to the high school students. I said, let that sink in. I said, a lot of y'all have a century in front of you.
Right.
100, literally.
Wow.
100 years. So what's 5 years to 100? So patience, I always teach patient persistence, right? I know John was probably talking about that when he was on here, right? Because I mentor him in patient persistence. A lot of people heard that we overestimate what you can get done in a year, but grossly underestimate what you can get done in 5 years. And when you zoom that out and start to build, like my Young Kings Collective, we just had everyone go through a 5-year visioning. And what's crazy is because a year, again, I can do all this and you don't hit everything you want to do in a year, you get discouraged.
Right.
But when you look at it from the 5-year lens, you see that, oh yeah, I'm stepping towards this 5 years. And so now time gets put into its proper perspective.
Right.
And it's like, back to what's the alternative? If I don't, I can look around me and see the results. And the best part about all of that, if you try this and try it for 5 years. If it doesn't work, if everything I'm saying, I'm lying to you, you can always go back.
Right. That job gonna be there.
You know what I mean? And the people are gonna still be there and have the same mindset, complaining about X, Y. It's gonna be there.
Right.
Give it a shot. You deserve it.
Man, bars right there.
Yes. So now I want to take it into what's called Roundtable, where you're able to ask us questions. Of course, you know, we've been grilling you this entire podcast, and you've been doing great as far as answering all of our questions. I think it's our turn to be on the hot seat.
Yeah, I love it. So y'all got y'all episodes in now. Y'all been doing your thing. Again, shout out to what y'all doing. I love when I first seen that, I was like, I love the concept. I'm glad y'all keep doing it, all this type of things, right? You hear nuggets. What's y'all process of putting stuff into practice? Because I always say knowledge isn't power, only applied knowledge is power, but it's only experienced knowledge that turns into wisdom.
Right.
How do you guys go about, oh yeah, that's a good thing? What do you do from these things that you hear something good? What's your process of putting things into practice so you actually get benefits beyond just listening to something?
Okay, so for me, when it comes to like with all the guests that we have on, taking that knowledge and basically and putting it into my life is your question, correct? I think a lot of it is just the perspectives, knowing when I'm in certain situations. One that sticks out to me is Matt Roach, and a lot of the stuff is very simple stuff, but just having the 3 people that he really trusted in. And for me, that's more so taking a look at the people that I've been keeping around me, more of the people that who can I trust, especially as we have kids and we're building our families. I think you start to think about those things a little more on like who are your kids spending most of their time with and stuff like that. So I think investing in the people that are around me that are doing good is a big thing, you know. And I think I learned a lot from just the perspective of each person in itself having their own journey, having their own obstacles. So when I'm going through my obstacles or I'm going through my tough times and hearing what people have been through, it makes it like, oh, like this really is not bad. If he can get through some of these things, like why couldn't I get through some of those things? So that's another thing. Another thing that I learned from doing the podcast as well is kind of like people's comments from the outside as well that aren't on the podcast necessarily. And a lot of times it becomes easier to see their mindset on things and how limiting it is based off of some of the guests that we've had on, you know, and hearing like they might look at one person and they might not fit their idea of what overstepping poverty is, but who's to say that person can't be a resource to you to get to where you need to go, you know? And I think that's what's so limiting about a lot of things. And I think that's, you know, with what you're doing with your Young Kings collective and getting those, you know, young leaders around people that are in places that are successful and they're high performers. And, you know, I think a lot of that is what I take away from it mostly is just the perspective of others and understanding that, you know, for instance, if you can do what you're doing, why can't we do that as well? It's inspiring.
Absolutely. You know, for me, it's one thing I've noticed with everyone that comes on to our podcast, they're leaders, but two, they're working on themselves and they're helping work on other people as well. You know, they're not just gatekeeping the information to ensure that they're growing in an aspect, they're taking people with them and helping them grow as well. So for me, it's like, okay, so how can we do that with Overstepping Poverty? How can we not only, of course, just limit the people that are just here sitting in this chair, but take what we're doing out into the world and give that back, so then that other people can tell their stories or make a podcast that they want. So that is one thing actually that I feel like we moved into now that we can actually start this year, and it's what's called OSP Productions. It's a much cheaper way for people to utilize, you know, all the great equipment that we have, so then they can make their own podcasts, so then they can tell their own stories and whatnot. So then the way I see it is we're putting this podcast out and it's helping a bunch of individuals. Now, if we can make a huge podcast family that's also doing the exact same thing, I mean, we're helping millions then at that point of time, you know? So that's one thing. And I think also just the one thing I see that everyone sits in that chair when they're working on themselves, it's like they kind of have tunnel vision. It doesn't matter what the other person said. It doesn't matter what, you know, what the world thinks I'm supposed to be. It's just me. I'm doing everything today to be better tomorrow. And so that's helped with me as well. I'm like, okay, it's time for me to have tunnel vision. If I like what I'm doing and I like the career that I'm in, continue to do it. If I like Overstepping Poverty, then I'm going to put everything into it, you know, to continue to do it no matter what the world thinks. And so I think that's for a lot of people, they need that tunnel vision to keep going, because you allow outside factors kind of deter you. And then you don't get done what you really should be doing in this world. So
yeah, it's a big distraction. Another question I got. So I have a lot of favorite quotes. Wendell Oliver Holmes had said, "Man's mind, once stretched, never returns to original form." How far in the future have you allowed yourself, and again, a very intentional word, allowed yourself to dream? And what would it take for you to dream one size bigger than that?
Oh man, that's a tough question. You know, I'd probably say I've allowed myself 5 years into the future. And I think that's just because I'm a man of, like, if I think of doing something and I write it down, I'm going to do it, period. You know, so I was able to get my 5-year plan out. Doesn't mean I can't make a 6-year or 10-year or anything like that. But I know that 5 years, I know everything that I planned out, I'm going to get it completed. Now, when I think of 10 years, I'm like, there's so much unknowns, so many things that I can't control in that 10 years. So it scares me to truly think of that long and put something out on that. So yeah, 5 years is the most that I have for that.
How could you go one size bigger in what you're dreaming of in 5 years?
Stop being scared, be uncomfortable, you know, and just, really it's because it's not that I don't like to be wrong, but like when I put my mind to something, I don't like to fail at it. And so then I feel like, if I go any further, I'm setting myself up for failure, but I think it's probably okay to fail because things change.
Yeah.
You know, people change. So maybe just that. Don't be afraid of failure, you know?
I like that. I think for me, you know, I've done the 1 year, the 5 year, and I agree with the Quan actually. I would say probably 5 is as far as I typically go. Not to say that I don't think about what the future would be, you know, even just 20 years from now. My grandma asked us that, so I have thought about that a little bit. And, you know, obviously life is way different at that point. But when I think of like 5 years from now. And then when I start thinking of 10, it's hard for me, kind of like DeQuan said, because I feel like if I say what I want to do 10 years from now, it feels like I'll be limiting myself because of, you underestimate what you can get in 5 years, imagine 10, so it's like, I guess I haven't gone further than that to really understand. But for me, like when I envision things, it's like I see pictures in my head. Mm-hmm. Like I can see, like specifically, I can see a picture of like a home with me and my family in front of it, and there's trees all around it, and I see the driveway. I see it. Like I can see it in my head. I don't know where that's at. I don't know when that is, but it's interesting because it's like, as I made the move to leave Cross Country Mortgage yesterday, like that image in my head felt like it got closer. So it's like, typically that's how I do set the goals. I do all those things. But like, if once I see it in my head and I start to see it repeatedly, it's like, I know, like I'm going to get to that point someday. I don't know when it is, but that's why I just have to keep going. Like I knew I wanted to leave Cross Country Mortgage months ago, but I knew that I had to put the work in and continue to do what I was doing while I kind of felt for like that opportunity where it was like, now is when I need to jump. But leading up to that decision of jumping, I felt like I went through a period of like, not dark suicidal thoughts, but like thoughts where you're like, damn, is this working? What am I doing? And it's because I was in an environment that I wasn't supposed to be in, I think. So yeah, I mean, I look ahead. I just don't know how far that is really.
No, it's big. So when you think about the distance between you at your current age to 18, because I get asked that question all the time too, what would you tell that future self? But I would go back to at a nuance to that. Knowing what you know now, right? What would you say to yourself at 18 that would accelerate you to get to where you are right now? Like, what are a few of those key pieces of advice you get 45 seconds in a time machine to go back and just whisper something to your 18-year-old self? What do you say to yourself so you can say you got here faster, quicker, better, etc.? What jewels you drop on yourself?
Take chances. Just take a chance, period. I think when I was 18, I mean, everyone said, you got to go to college. You got to go do this. You need to do this. And I felt like I was more of like on someone else's path, and I feel like at 18, because I feel like I'm a creative. I think I'm very creative in what I do. I think out of the box. I'm very
great videos, by the way. I love your little snippet.
It.
You know what I mean?
Appreciate it.
I stopped and give that a look. Like, man, going to say some funny stuff. I like it.
Appreciate that, but I feel like there was just something that like I was put on a path that wasn't my own, and so at 18, like if I knew that then, and I just continued to do what I'm doing now, and continued to do what I truly love to do, I mean. Man, OSP probably would have already been a thing. You know what I'm saying? So I'd say that, take a chance.
Yeah, you recognize you were ready way before you thought you was ready.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's good. What about you?
Yeah. Well, I think it's one of those things, the perspective, like when you're at 18, looking back on that, you want somebody like you, right? Like I wish I had somebody like me when I was at that point. So it's like, yeah, I would definitely tell myself, because we were going into college at that point, both 2 doors down from each other. I don't feel like I had the confidence to believe that I could do something bigger than just a college route. I didn't even the idea wasn't even presented to me as an option of like, hey, you could be doing something beyond, criminal justice, because that's what we got our degree in, thinking I'm going to go be a lawyer, because my grandma was a judge. And it's like, are you doing these things because of what you want to do? Probably not, but along the way you pick up and you make the most of it. I would just tell myself at the same point, if I didn't change going to college, I would tell myself to get more out of my comfort zone, meet way more people. Like, I feel like I missed one of the biggest opportunities being out of college for 4 years and sticking to the same group of people where most of them I don't talk to.
Yep.
Like, let's be real.
You got thousands of people doing amazing stuff, right now.
For sure. And like what we were focused on, like we were all getting our education, but what we were focused on was not what we should be focused on. And I think that naturally comes just with maturity and stuff like that. But, if I feel like if I had somebody like me, when I was at that age, I wouldn't have been doing a lot of the stuff that I was doing. I probably would have been a lot more dialed in, focused. Somebody like, yo, what are you doing?
Find a mentor.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice as well. But yeah.
Well, I think that's what's dope about this podcast. Again, it's that stepping stone of it's going to be so relatable to so many people because, again, you listen to all the guests that you had on, listen to several of your episodes, you'll find plenty, not just one, you'll find plenty of people. You can relate to that part of someone's story. And look, here we are.
Right.
And again, that permission. Sometimes you need permission to dream. That's why I always say, like, the greatest gift you can give the world is the next best version of yourself. Because when someone sees someone who looks like you or came into similar circumstances or was facing fear or I faced that too.
Right.
And if you hear it enough, that's why I say all the listeners out there, like, listen to these episodes. You're going to hear these common themes. You can hear these common things that you'll hear episode. There's differences, but there's similarities.
Right.
And it's like if people, especially the younger folks, like if they can lock into this stuff earlier, that's why what y'all doing is beautiful. It's going to create a pathway for people to get here faster, quicker, take chances. When you, again, 18, 19, like, what responsibilities do you really have?
Right.
What's losing?
Right.
Seriously.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Take it early versus now. Fathers out here, you can't take as many chances because you got to be a little bit, more smart and all that.
Right.
So.
Exactly.
Well, just think if you're taking out, for me, I don't know if you had student loans. For me, I had student loans. If I was taking out that same amount of money and I had somebody telling me what to do with it, like, stop. It's different. Life is different. And that is like the power of, not thinking you can also do everything on your own. I think that's another piece I would tell myself is, like, seek guidance, like, seek it, because where else are you going to get it from? But when you're at that age, you think you know everything.
Right.
So that's another thing. I don't know if I would have accepted it. I don't know if I would have accepted the advice at that point, which is another piece, but yeah.
Well, we've got just a couple more questions for you. Well, really just one here before we end our podcast here. Now, you've been a leader for the longest time now. You've been incorporated in corporations and leadership there. You built your own, you're a CEO of Think3D. You have Leaders of Tomorrow, King's Noble, right? That's what it's called?
King's Collective.
King's Collective. My apologies there. And many more. But also, you're a teacher. So I'm assuming that during this time you have given so much knowledge and you've given them tips and hacks, during that time. So what I want to know is, what are the 5 tips, tricks, and hacks that you tell someone today in Overstepping Poverty?
Tips, tricks, and hacks. Hey, first of all, just framed it up. Like, there's no fast way to it, right? These are literally stuff that no different than you can't. I want to bench press 300 pounds. Is a consistent thing in that, right? So I would say, number one, go on that journey to know yourself, right? And one of my core tenets of my life is live your highest truth. Imagine, I don't care what religion you are, what color you are, what if just everybody, atheists included, if you're an atheist, what's your highest truth? Like, everyone's got values. What would our world look like if everyone would just live their highest values? If Christians would truly live their highest values, or Buddhists or Muslims, let's start there, right? Because what that then gives you this pathway of authenticity. Like, you can't get it wrong being you. But most people don't know how to be themselves because they're trying to be other people. So go on that lifelong journey of knowing yourself. How do you get to know somebody? You spend time with them. Right. Go spend time with yourself. You was just asking when we came in here, how was my thinkcation is my time away, and I spend time in my own mind, right? So that's I would say that would be the first one. Second one, develop a love of self-discipline. Most people, the challenge is discipline has been an ugly word most of your life. When you're a kid, you got discipline that wasn't good. You're in school, you got discipline, you got work, so on and so forth. And the additive, the self-discipline, you choose to do this stuff. You have to discipline yourself. One thing that I do most days, I take a cold shower. And the reason I do that is there's some health benefits. I don't even care about that. It's mindset, because it's the Brian Tracy, eat the frog type of mentality. If you do a hard thing in the morning, like, no one's there. No one knows if I did it or didn't do it, but it's a mindset. When I step into that cold shower, it never gets easier. It's always cold, especially in the winter. It's cold, but it's a mindset. And I put on this beast mode mentality. I start to identify that, which then, number 3, start to get a clear definition of that next best version of yourself, right? We all through my life, we know personal inventory, those type of things. And what happens in that space, you go back to when we talk about what is success, and you start people define all these words as success. And one of the words that stands out the most when I think about success is confidence. How do you build confidence? Like think about the jobs that you're in. You're confident in mortgage. You're confident in the world that you're in. All these different things, like you build confidence by what? Putting the work in.
Right.
Well, you build self-confidence by putting the work in. And when you start to get a clear definition of what that looks like, it gives you the confidence. Like I love my girls at home. I'm like, Dysart. It's the thing. You a Dysart. That I'm the one in my family that's going to mean something different.
Right.
I built an acronym. What does Dysart mean? Dysart is destiny yields to specific alignment with resonant truth. I tell my girls, you a Dysart. You can do that in the game. You Dysart. I got a t-shirt.
Right.
Dysart just did it.
Yeah.
Right. There's a confidence, a swag that comes from it. Now, it don't happen overnight. Going back to addressing the things from my past. But when you start to see that I can win, and I define that, having that clear definition, if tomorrow you wrote out a script of who you want to be 5 years from now, and you had $1 million and you paid an actor to act it out, they could do it.
Right.
What happens if you get a definition of who you were trying to become, and then tomorrow I paid you $1 million to become that? If you can start to vibrate at that level and start to act in that way, you're going to accelerate that lifestyle. When you start when the visualization you're doing with your house, because you see it, and when you can feel what it's like when your wife's like, babe, you did this, we got this.
Right.
Your kids, you accelerate in that. Or getting a clear next version of yourself. Number 4, bookend your days. How you start your day, how you finish your day matters. If you study successful people, one of the top commonalities amongst the most successful people on the planet is how they start their day. Most of them beat the sun up, and they have a clear definition of how they start the day. I use the analogy that I heard from Earl Nightingale. He's like, imagine a fighter pilot. A fighter pilot has a clear checklist of how before they take off, before they land the plane. Why? Because their life's on the line. They could die if they miss a piece of it, right? No different. You should have a clear checklist of how to successfully take off into your day and then land the plane. Because literally your life is on the line versus you're not dying, but it's the difference between living and existing.
Right.
And it's one of the greatest gifts, because now when you build habits, you look at the ancient wisdom of Aristotle and Socrates, like a man is what you repeatedly do. Therefore, you are your habits. If you look at your habits, that's what your life becomes. So you build the habit of how you start your day, what time you start the day. People often think, like, I hate the statement of like, I'm just not a morning person. What does that mean? Like, do you expect to wake up like you in the movies?
Right.
Right? No. That's not a reality. I can sleep. I can sleep 12 hours if I let myself. I've been waking up, give or take, around 4 o'clock probably for 14 years now. I go back, I thought when my old Facebook feeds popped up, and I'm like, I've been at this thing for that long.
Wow.
And you just can't compound interest. Warren Buffett, he became a billionaire, compound interest. And so you can't catch up to those things. The average person can't catch up to me because they can't fast forward reading the 50 books a year that I've been reading for the last decade. They can't catch up to the hours and the experience that I got when I was grinding 60 hours a week at corporate. I got all this experience, right? So how you take off in the day, then how do you land the plane in the day? Because how you finish is how you start, right? So bookends. And last one, I would say biggest tip in the world, in that, again, you study out successful people, one of the top 3 commonalities you're also going to find is they have a gratitude practice. Not just grateful, gratitude practice. To practice something is to put it in the thing, right? And that's challenged. Can you be in a state of being in a bad mood and in a state of gratitude at the same time? You can be grateful in a bad mood, but when you get into a state of gratitude, you start to get on this pathway of enlightenment. Again, you start to look at the ones that, I use the analogy for me of just thinking about, I call it going deep, right? When there's a hurricane on the surface, thousands of feet down, it's calm. And so when you learn to meditate and get into a state of gratitude, no different as parents. Like, if your kids were spoiled, do you want to give them more if they're like not grateful for what they have? Of course not. So why would God be any different, right? And so when you spend that time, like my one non-negotiable, if I only could do one thing in a day, I'm connecting. I'm connected to source, God, universe, I don't care what you call it. I get connected because
meditation.
Yeah. I get in there, I connect. I'm grateful for the day. I visualize all these different things, and I get into a state of like true gratitude for what my life is. And you want to hack in I'll give you one step further of the deeper side of it. What's crazy is when you look back, if people really get into it, you can gain gratitude for what has happened, because in your mind, that's fact. This has already happened. Your past is fact. That's a fact for me. Well, studies show like probably around 50% of your memories are false to some degree.
Right.
So we know this. So you have facts in your mind, in reality, that happened, but yet it's falsified, but yet you can still tether to gratitude for what has happened.
Right.
What happens if, again, where does the past exist? In your mind.
Head. Yeah.
It no longer exists. It's all only in your head. Everything that in the past just relies here. Where does your future exist? In your head, in your imagination. Same thing. What happens when you can learn to look at gratitude backwards, and you have the same level of gratitude for what has already happened, and have that same level of gratitude? I think because most of Christianity, what happens, what gets wrong with that is they approach God with a beggar's mentality. He said very clearly, he's like, everything is possible if you believe. Keep asking and you will be given what you ask for. Like the difference, again, I really believe this stuff, right? And so in that space, because I know if I can see it in my mind, I can hold it in my hand. If I hold the dream long enough, my motive is pure, all the different things, it's going to happen. Now, when it happens, I always give you this last little piece. Your job in life is to define what you want, why you want it, right? Really, again, no limits. What do you want and why do you want it? The how, that's faith. It takes faith. I don't know when. That's faith. Faith. I believe it's going to happen. I believe faith is evidence of things not yet seen. Everything that was ever created started into where? Somebody's mind. Someone thought about microphones to be able to speak into a thing, thought about all these things. Someone saw it here first. But they had faith, and they held that faith long enough where it came into fruition. Now the when, that's belief. Right? Believe everything is possible if you believe. We sat down on these chairs. You didn't test this. You just believe it was going to hold. When you have that level of belief, it's a fact. The things that I see on my vision board, they already exist. I've created them. I don't know when, that's belief, but they're going to come to fruition. So then when you wake up every day, the last piece of this is your daily responsibility is the who. Who are you showing up as? And this goes back to identity. If you can get a clear picture of how you will vibrate, how you will act and move through your day when you have that dream home, the sooner you can do that and you act as if you already have it, you accelerate the process. And so in that's tied into gratitude. So I'm so thankful and grateful that everything is always working out for me. Therefore, I expect that wonderful things are happening to me. I say that statement multiple times a day because I really believe that. You can hook me into a machine. I believe this stuff. And so everything you see that I've done, and you hear me and Bonnie talk about it, everything we've done to this point, like we in the third inning. Right. Y'all about to see some stuff because we already created it.
You've already seen it. Yep. There was a piece of that. I know we're getting to the end of this. I just had to expand on it a little bit. When you are doing your meditation and you're meditating and you're seeing forward, right? Do you, at what point did you start doing that? And then, because what I've noticed from it is it starts to attract things to you. Like things just seem to start coming to you oddly, right? When did that start for you? And when did you like actually realize like the power of that specifically?
Journey for me evolved back in, I started meditating probably 2021, somewhere in there. Wasn't a meditator. Again, I prayed, did the various things. In 2019, I was friends of mine, we were in Jamaica. And I remember there was just something stirring in my spirit. It was like, there's something more beyond just the religious side of what people did versus relationship, right? It was more the rituals and all that type of stuff. And I remember sitting up clear sky, and I just said to God, I said, I just want to know the truth. Whatever the truth is, I want to know the truth. And I remember making that declarative ask, and then slowly, steadily, surely, the things started getting revealed to me, and I started getting seeing something that revealed to me the real truth behind the Bible and the real truth that's hidden in these things, right? And so I started to see that, and again, evidence-based. Now, here's a challenge for a lot of people, and this is a danger of when you start to want things, and you come from a state of wanting, and you're visualizing the future. You also can create lack because it says, I'm not here. So when you're asking for things and asking for it, you don't believe it's really going to happen. Right. Versus, I thank you, it already is mine. You're proclaiming that it's already yours. So law of attraction is an absolute real thing. Like you study this stuff out. Look at this last little piece of 2021. I got a video, I was watching a video from Steve Harvey, and he said, create a list of 300 things you want. 300 things you want. Oh, that's a lot of things. You say you're going to struggle. Most people don't operate that way. 300 things. But Steve Harvey, you know his story, right? It's like he was homeless, all that type of stuff. Like, man, he went from homeless to over $100 million, right? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna prove it wrong.
Yeah.
Right. So I developed this list in 2021. I keep it on my phone. You say, if you look at this every single day, again, at least once or twice a day, I don't call it my wants list, because want says I just want it. It's my manifestations list. Right. And so I look at this every day. 2021, so I got now things, I got personal things I want. I got my house built in there. I got relationship stuff. I got travel. I got a lot of experiences I'm going to have. I have impact and purpose, and I have stuff in my business, right? By looking at this thing, right, 2021, I knocked off 22 things off my list.
Wow.
22, I hit off 25. Last year, I hit 28. If it's on here, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
Right, I meant this stuff will happen.
Right,
and I color code it now, so every year I can see. I just check off the stuff, so I have all the stuff. I keep it on there.
Right,
that's my evidence. So this is my evidence of there's no falsifying what this is.
Right,
this is facts. You can look back and Tamien, I said it back there in a couple weeks. Well, obviously, but it'll be closed by the time we come out there. In 15 days, we're closing on Culture Cove. That was a thought. We were in Washington D.C. sitting on the Lincoln Memorial, and Vonnie had said something about creating a retreat space, and I was like, I felt it. And I told my dad, he was with us, I said, take a picture of this moment. I got it captured. I said, that was the moment Culture Code, because Vonnie said it, I agreed with it. Two became, again, when two or more gather together and they believe, 15 days from now, Culture Cove, 10-acre property, hour outside of Sioux Falls. Lives going to be changed out there. Mind, body, and spirit retreat. Beautiful. Wow. It's about to happen. So again, if you speak it, and that's what again what y'all have too is special. Like when y'all have, all you need is one. Vonnie's my guy, best friend, lifelong road dog. Like we doing some things. If we speak it, it's gonna happen. Again, it's hard sometimes when you're by yourself. But that's why it's important to get around other like-minded individuals like y'all got. And as you keep dreaming and stepping and believing all that type of stuff, it's gonna keep coming. Now again, when and how, almost none of your business.
Right. Yeah. Don't worry about it.
Just wake up. It's coming.
Keep going.
Right. It's coming. I'm thankful it's coming.
Right. No, that's amazing. And I appreciate all the gems you drop. There's definitely a lot that, we'll be able to take from this. Our viewers, listeners, and, everybody that comes across this will definitely be a better person when they're done listening to it. So I appreciate that.
They will. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Appreciate you guys, man.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir.
And as you guys know, this podcast is brought to you by OSP Productions, the production podcast company that makes podcasting easy for you. You don't have video? That's okay. You don't have audio? Don't sweat it. We've got you covered. All you got to do is go over to oversteppingpoverty.com, shoot us an email, let us know that you're ready to create your podcast, and we'll be able to help you out. Again, this is by OSP Productions, and we're Overstepping Poverty. We'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Overstepping Poverty. We hope you found this week's discussion informative and thought-provoking. We know that tackling poverty is a complex issue, but by working together and understanding the root causes, we can make progress towards creating a more equitable society. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and family, and don't forget to subscribe to our show. Until next time, let's take the next steps in Overstepping Poverty.